Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Kevin Bruni. I'm the athletic director here at Grand Rapids Christian Middle School. And this is my 6th year doing this at the middle school and 9th year overall. So thank you for coming. I think this is a really important meeting. Hopefully many of you came to learn a little bit about how basketball is going to work here at Grand Rapids Christian Middle School, so we can all get on the same page. So thank you for coming. A couple things about this Zoom. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask that question, because a couple times I'll stop and say, does anybody have a question or something they would like me to clarify? So go ahead and just unmute yourself and say it. Otherwise, in the chat function at the bottom, you can check in there and you can type things in there, and I'll check that chat function from time to time to see if there's a question in there. And undoubtedly, there's some things that I will not touch on that you'll want to know about. So please put them in the chat so that I can work on that for you. Okay, so if I could start us in a word of prayer, I think that'd be a great way for us to begin our season. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the chance to come together to talk about your school, your families, your kids, and how we can put you on display this year through the game of basketball. We thank you for the coaches who have chosen to be a part of leading these kids and leading these families this year. We pray that you give all of us a measure of grace and understanding that working together can be a ton of fun, but it can also be challenging. And to just remind us that these coaches are giving their time and energy to help out and do the best for our kids. They want great things for the kids. And so just give them wisdom, give them grace, and help them to do the best that they can. Be with all of us throughout this year. Help us to enjoy it and to help us be people that can help our kids learn and grow through the sport of basketball this year, and to know you better. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay. So I'm just letting a couple more people in here. All right. So I like to start just by a brief philosophy of athletics for Grand Rapids Christian Middle School. We came from recreation program. Now we're in this middle ground before we get to high school, right? High school is highly competitive, still participation oriented, but it's much more competitive, much more high stakes. Recreation was all things equal all the time, kind of in and out whenever you felt like it. It's just kind of like, hey, chance to be involved. And now we've got middle school. And so the goal for middle school is that we have the opportunity to learn and grow, to make mistakes, to improve, to test out skills in game formats, and to provide people the opportunity to see if they really enjoy investing in this game of basketball during these next 4 years. Because certainly as we get older, your commitment has to be higher to be able to be involved in a sport like basketball. That's a playing time sport that doesn't have a lot of kids in it as you go up and up. So this is a great chance for us to learn and do those things. And that's the most important thing we can do, and hopefully learn a lot about the Lord in that process. 5th and 6th grade families that are here, I'd like to speak to you quickly. Okay. Welcome to competitive interscholastic athletics. Okay. It's different than what you're used to. Okay. There's no longer equal playing time. The games are 24-minute games, 6-minute quarters. There's 6 minutes of required playing time by the league. And so we'll talk about playing time in a little bit, but just want you to know ahead of time, it's not equal. There is a minimum amount that we strive to hit and beat for each player, but it won't be the same. We meet 3 times a week. You are required to attend for being part of the team. And so we need you to be there. This is starting to step up that commitment level from recreational athletics. We want you to communicate about tardiness, communicate about absence, and being timely with that. Now is the time to start practicing that. In recreation, I know my son's a 3rd grader. Sometimes I kind of just blow it and we don't show up. And as we get into competitive athletics, we got to do better than that as parents. And so this is a time for us to step up and try to communicate a little bit better too. We have trained, managed, and paid coaches that are giving their time to help your child. And so that's a little different than just the volunteer, whoever that decides to do it because they got a little more time. So league generated schedules, there's rules by the league, there's paid officials. So there, a lot of stuff is new and different as we reach 5th and 6th grade athletics. So just wanted you to kind of be on that page and understanding that. For 5th graders, you're going to practice at Iroquois or Evergreen. Okay, now quick note about that. If you're a 5th grade parent, please take a note right here. The gym doors at Iroquois will be open from 4:45 to 5:15. Practices will always start at 5 o'clock, okay? And so you can drop your child off as early as 4:45, not before. The doors won't be open, okay? And if you try to drop them off after 5:15, the doors won't be open. You'll have to knock on the gym door. And then the doors will lock. So when it's time to pick up, don't try to get in. The doors will be locked. Just wait in your car. The kids will be sent out to you. Same thing at the middle school. The doors are programmed open 15 minutes before practice, and we send the kids back out to you. So just a note there. All right, so 5th and 6th grade families, we'll cover some more things. Then I'll ask if you have questions in just a minute. Again, if you have questions along the way, please type in this chat. I'm writing in there right now so that you can see that it will become active on the bottom of your screen. For 7th and 8th grade, okay, real quick, same as 5th and 6th, except the games are longer, 32 minutes instead of 24, and there's 6 minutes required still. So the same amount of minimum required, which means the playing time is less equal, okay? Compete and practice 4 days a week instead of 3. 7th grade, we have team formation, but we try to split equally still. Where 8th grade, we have team formation, but we split it by developmental appropriateness. Meaning the more advanced players play on a team, and that team plays in an upper division of the 8th grade league, and the players that aren't quite as advanced, they're put on a different team and they play in the lower division of that 8th grade league. Okay, that's how it goes in the league. All right, so a couple of notes for everybody to think about here is please remember that sports are voluntary. They're not a right. So we're glad that you volunteered to participate and enjoy this opportunity. Please remember that that's totally voluntary. Participation on a school team takes courage and commitment. It's a challenge, hopefully. Hopefully it's not all roses, right? Hopefully there is a challenge there. The player's job is to do their best. Playing time is something that we are going to cover right now. So I'm going to share my screen with you to talk a little bit about playing time. And so that you can ask questions if you have any about playing time. So let me see if I can find my sheet here. Does everyone see this sheet? Give me a thumbs up for those of you that have your video on so I know that we see it. Okay, so in our playing time sheet, what we want to do is talk about this overview. Okay, so we develop skills and understanding over winning. That's very important. In grades 5 to 7, we're helping them figure it out. As we get to 8th grade, it's much less equal. It's more competitive in nature because the next step is high school where there is no guaranteed playing time at all. All right. So if we look at basics here, you know, it's not recommended by the league or us that we play equally. There's a minimum of 6 minutes. Here's what we want to try to do. If kids are showing up on time, consistently doing their best, having a good attitude, we want to try to beat those minimums at all of our grade levels. Okay, so if your child is doing their best, they're working hard, they have a great attitude, they're trying to learn, we want to give them a chance in the game above those minimums to experience basketball, right? On the flip side of that, if your child isn't showing up on time, they're not doing their best, they don't have a good attitude, they're not listening, they're not learning the plays or doing their part on the team, even if they're more talented, it's possible they may only play the minimum because they're not earning more than that. And that's the coach's decision, okay? And so I just want you to know that our goal is to beat that if your child is doing the process of sport well. If they're doing the process of sport well with all that energy, excitement, attitude, doing their best, learning, committed, we want to try to beat it. If they're not doing those things, regardless of talent, they could play just that minimum if they show up to the game. Okay, and so I want you to know that ahead of time. Right here, it says no player or parent should expect that things will be equal at any time. Here's the thing, everybody wants to play with the best player, right? Because the best player makes who's ever on the floor with them better. So by nature, that player is going to play more minutes than other people, right? That's just the obvious side of things, right? We don't want to just go in shifts because then nobody gets a chance to play with that best player. So we need to know that the nature of basketball lends itself to unequal playing time if we want to give kids a chance to be successful in the best way possible. So we shouldn't expect it to be equal. It is a little harder on big teams But most of our teams are pretty small. I think we have a couple teams that are 11, which is kind of big. But I think those are 7th and 8th grade teams. So we should work out okay because there's more minutes there. And then over here, coaches, they have the latitude to choose their own style and strategy for how to play this philosophy out. This is the same sheet I show the coaches. They're going to do a Zoom meeting with you once the team is made to kind of tell you how they're going to play this out on their team. But it's up to them, right? I know you may not agree with how they do playing time. That's totally your right to not agree, but it's not your right to tell the coach how to do playing time, right? That's not your right. That's the coach's job to do that. And so the coach is out there not to pick favorites, not to make it bad for your child. Obviously, they give up their time to do this. And so they want it to be the best possible they can be. But again, it's up to them and it's up to their latitude. And so please remember that you obviously see your child through different glasses than everyone else does. And it's okay. I see my children the same way. But I have to recognize in that same moment that it's important for us to realize that we all want it to be fair. We just want it to be more fair for our kid, right? And that's just the nature of humanity. And so we have to remember that that's how we are wired. And before we go on and do something, we have to remember, okay, this is not my job to make sure it's more fair for my child. Okay, so again, we want to just make sure that we understand some things about playing time here. So I'm going to stop sharing this for right now. Does anybody have a question about playing time or about the 5th and 6th or 7th and 8th grade kind of divisions of how we're doing basketball and the different requirements of each at this point? Again, if you do, you can write it in the chat. A couple other things about this. If you have a late practice, our practice times are at 3:15, 5, and 6:30 here at the middle school. If your child has a later practice, they have to go home. Unless they're in homework club and you pay to do that, they have to go home. They can't stay here. We can't watch them. They got to go home. So please bring them back at their practice time, as we mentioned. And then a note about officials. This is middle school GRCMS basketball. This is not the NBA, college, or even MHSA high school basketball, right? This is the middle school league. We have a shortage of officials in the state of Michigan, a ridiculous shortage. Like, we cancel a lot of events. There's going to be games this year where you only have one official show up. And so it's really important for us to understand in the game of basketball, people think that when they go into the gym and buy a ticket, they have a right to belittle and be frustrated with officials. It is not true. We don't tolerate our coaches being frustrated and angry and belittling them. And so we as fans, we don't need to hold ourselves to the same standard. Okay, it's really important that we be a different place. I want people to love to come to Grand Rapids Christian to officiate a game because of how well we treat them. Okay, remember, this is not the top brass official. Okay, this is probably the official who's learning the game of basketball and how to officiate it. I used to think it was really easy to be an official until I got registered as one. And then I realized this is one of the hardest things I've ever tried to do, even at the middle school level. Okay, so please, if you know better than the officials from the stands and you're willing to yell at them about that, okay, that's okay. Just expect me to come to you with an application for you to become an official because we need more of you on the floor. Okay, so if you want to do that, that's fine. Just don't be offended when I come sit by you and give you an application on how to be an official, because we need your help. If you can do better untrained from the stands than they can do on the court, we need you in the stripes. Okay, so please encourage, love on, and care for these officials. Thank them for giving us an opportunity to actually play the game today. Okay, please. That's so important because we are so short on officials. We need more of them. And in all honesty, without joking, if you know somebody that could be an official, please let us know. We have a person that in the GRCMS League who will get them certified and get them helping and serving our families and kids. It would be amazing. So please help us with officials. Put Christ on display by thanking them, caring for them, high-fiving them, whatever it takes to get them to love being an official at this place. Okay. Any questions? I'm looking in the chat here. Any questions before we move on? If you have one, you can unmute and say it. I'm going to look through the chat a second. Looks like Matt Skolden's going to be a ref. That's great. We'll take him.
Oh, Kevin?
What's that?
Christian Cortez here. Quick question. So is the fifth graders, are they going to be divided just only among fifth graders, or are they mixed with sixth?
No, only fifth, only sixth, only seventh, and only eighth. Yep.
Okay.
You play within grade level. Good question, Christian.
And one last question. I didn't quite. Is it 6 minutes that you said was the minimum playing time?
Yep.
For the fifth graders?
For all grades, 6 minutes
for
is
all
the
grades.
minimum. All grades. Yep. The length of the fifth, sixth game is shorter though. There's only 6 minute quarters in fifth and sixth grade. Where in seventh and eighth grade, there's 8 minute quarters. But the length of minimum playing time is 6 minutes regardless of level.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Anybody else? Yes, eighth grade is split by skill level, developmental appropriateness, A and B. Okay, so we'll go on. If you have anything else, let me know. But planning for team formation, it's 2 to 3 days. You all should have gotten an email from your coach over the weekend about what's coming up next week. So please reference that for your grade level. One of the coaches will have emailed you about that. We use TeamSnap. That's an app for your phone. You can also get it on your desktop if you don't have a smartphone. But we do a lot through there. It manages our game schedules. It manages our practice schedules. It manages emailing, chat functions for teams and parents. And it also manages game day health checks. There's a little button on there that if you click on your game, it will say health check, and you'll have to fill out a little screener to say that your child has an appropriate health check for that game. You don't have to do that for practices, but you do have to do that for games. Your coach will remind you about that. But that is one thing that we will do. But everything is going to run through TeamSnap. You're not on TeamSnap yet because we don't have teams yet. Once you're split up into a team, your coach will invite you to their team, and then he'll start communicating through the app with you for all of your information moving forward. The app gives you reminders about all your practices, reminders about all your games, and has maps on it. It's really a nice thing. So you've seen this in other sports, but I just want you to know that's what's happening. You're not in it yet. That will happen once your son is on a team. Okay. Practice schedules will go through there. We aim to meet 4 times a week in 7th and 8th grade, and we aim to meet 3 times a week in 5th and 6th grade. So you should see that on your app. The coach will load your practices in there with your games when that happens. The game schedules haven't come out yet. They're still building that with our league. Once they know how many teams there are, they'll start building those schedules, and then they'll load those right onto the app for you. When we go to games, as a spectator, enjoy the game, right? And help us create gritty, resilient people when we're in the stands, when we're in the car, when we're in the lobby together, when we're at the dinner table. Here's a few suggestions based on research to help create a gritty, resilient athlete. Okay, so number 1 suggestion for you, take notes if you want, or just listen. Focus on us, okay? Focus on us and do process-oriented feedback. What I mean by that is, focus on our players, our attitudes, our intensity, our work ethic, our level of motivation, our level of attention to detail, our focus, instead of on the result of the game or on others, the other teams. Okay, result-oriented praise creates fixed mindset kids. And those kids are brittle, and they only perform well when it's going their way. They're not resilient, they're not tough. If we focus on the process so that kids can understand what's the most important part of life, which is the process of those things, our attitude, our intensity, the things we can control, right? If we can focus on those things much more than the results, that's going to be a great way for us to build gritty, resilient athletes. All right, so don't worry about the officials. Don't worry about the other coaches. Don't worry about the other players and if they were pushing or if they were getting away with things or the officials were quote unquote cheating us. Okay, we have to remove the plank from our own eye, right? We know that from referencing our Bible that it's all about us. We have to look within, right, instead of looking outward at other people. We have to manage ourselves. So step 1, as a spectator, as a parent, as a fan, as a grandparent, focus on us, control the things we can control. Okay, number 2, try not to create a victim mentality by trying to make your child feel better. And what I mean by that is if we lose or we don't play well or your child doesn't play well or things don't go the way that we hoped, try not to make excuses for the team. Don't blame the coach. Don't blame the officials. Don't blame another player on the team. Don't think that the other team was cheating in some way. Talking about maybe they didn't do their playing time the right way, or the court was too small, or all we're doing in those moments is saying that we're the victim and something else is to blame. If we want gritty, resilient people, we have to allow them to take ownership instead of be the victim. And so we have to own what we can do, the things we can control. And so those are two things to help you this year in a very indirect way, but a way that can make a huge difference. Help your child become grittier. Focus on process-oriented feedbacks instead of results. Don't talk about points scored, talk about motivation levels, effort, energy, and try not to make them a victim. Right? We didn't lose because of the ref. We didn't lose because of the coach. We didn't lose because of them. We lost because we didn't control the things we could control well enough. And that puts ownership on us, puts us in control, and empowers us to be better. Gives us the control of being more resilient, tougher, and a chance to move forward. So that's just some advice. Take it for what it is. Coach interactions, a compliment to our soccer and volleyball. Parents did a fantastic job. I mean, I couldn't be happier with our parents, the way that they communicated with coaches, the school, with us about illnesses or challenges. It was just amazing. They treated officials really well. Opposing teams, they were really respectful. We had no complaints from other schools about sportsmanship or following the rules incorrectly or anything. No complaints about our parents or anything. It was just amazing. I'm so proud of our soccer and our volleyball parents. And so why did that go so well? In addition, just a couple of things. Number one, they trusted our coaches. Remember, these coaches were hired. They wanted to be a part of your kid's life. They're not there to pick favorites. They wanted to be a part of it. And so remember that. Trust your coach. They have your child's best interest in mind. Number two, we provided a great experience through Grand Rapids Christian Athletics. And what I mean by that is that we provided an opportunity to grow and become a better version of ourselves. For growth to occur, I think we all know that there has to be difficulty involved. So great experiences involve fun, they involve triumph, they involve good feelings, but they most certainly and most importantly involve challenges and difficulty and struggles. And it's important for us to allow our children to have those struggles, to have those difficulties, encourage them to own the things they can control so that they can move forward. That's a great experience. It's not just all candy, flowers, and desserts, right? It has to include some of those difficulties. We don't get stronger in the weight room if we don't push ourselves and challenge our muscles, right? So when it comes to the difficulties and challenges of life through athletics, we can learn a ton about allowing our kids to struggle and try not to bail them out and fix it for them. Just encourage them to keep fighting and keep moving forward and to try to control things they can control. Another thing we can do to have a great winter is have gratitude. It's a privilege to play this game, not a right. Provide the benefit of the doubt. You're only hearing secondhand from your child about what's happening out there. And so remember that. I mean, my children, my girls are 4 years old. And when I come home, they can manipulate me to think that the other one did something wrong. And then I'm mad at them and that one manipulates me the other way. And they're 4, right? I submit to you that your child has had 8 to 12 more years of experience at perfecting this skill. So just remember, there's always another side to the story. Provide benefit of the doubt to the athletic department, to the coaches, to the people that are the adults in charge. And one way we can do that is to go to the coach with questions instead of with statements. So basically what I mean by that is ask them, hey, my child said this. What was your view of that situation, or what, what was going on with that situation, instead of saying, you did this, my child told me, and my child doesn't lie, right? That's a challenging thing to do. That puts everybody in a weird spot. So again, ask questions to start conversations and trust those adults. Somewhere along the way, we stopped trusting the adults and started listening to our child more often. And I'm not sure where, because when I was a kid, if I went home and I got in trouble, my parents, they didn't care what I had to say. It was over, right? I was done, I was in trouble, and that was the end. And now it's a lot of times the opposite. So my plea to you is Trust us, right? Give us the benefit of the doubt, ask questions, start conversations, work with us. I teach all of the coaches that we love our parents. We want to involve them in our program. We care about their opinions. And so let's work together, not be pointing fingers at each other and blaming. And that's an easy thing to do. And I just encourage you to work with us and ask questions and start conversations. Any questions right now that you have? I have basically 2 more things before we're finished. And one of those things is COVID. And so I'm going to look through here. What are the dates of the first week of tryout? Sean, that is next week, the week of the 25th. Your coach has already sent those dates out. If there's any other questions, please ask them now or put them in the chat. Okay, last 2 things. One of them comes from one of our most experienced coaches. Okay, one of our best coaches in our building. He was my coach way back in the day when I was at Sylvan Christian. He was my 8th grade coach. And I could tell you plenty of stories about how he formed me back then. And man, are we lucky to have him still forming student athletes and Christian athletes today. But he talks about 2 ways. And if you're lucky enough to have him as a coach, you're going to get to hear him talk about this. But 2 ways that we can really help our kid have a tough time in basketball. Number 1, the parent sideline coach. Okay, he talks about this because he says, when there's a parent sideline coach, your child cannot win. Because the sideline coach, the actual coach, is doing something and trying to take the team into consideration. You're not looking at it the same way. As a parent, you're looking at it from a parent perspective with a parent lens. The coach is looking at it from a team perspective, all people involved. And so when he's telling that kid something day in, day out, and then in the game, and the parent coach is telling him something different on the sideline, the child's now put in a place where they have to A, listen to dad and mom, who they go home with, or they have to listen to coach. So if they listen to dad and mom, that's good. They don't get in trouble at home, but then they're in trouble with coach. If they listen to coach, now they've ignored mom and dad, and they're going to be in trouble in the car ride home with mom and dad. Child cannot win in that scenario. My request to you, please allow the coach to manage the coaching. And as a spectator, encourage about the things that your child can control. Effort, energy, attitude, listening, all of those things. Encourage them to do their best. Okay. Pit number 2 is behavior in the stands around officials or about others. Child loses focus on the game when our parents or their parent is screaming at officials or having a hard time. Okay, that really takes them out of their focus because they hear that. We're in a middle school gym here. This isn't like the Palace of Auburn Hills. Okay, they can hear you and see what you're doing, and it will take their focus off the game. And number 1, we don't want kids to worry about officials, right? We want them to worry about the game and doing their best and listening to their coach and playing for each other and sacrificing for another brother. Right? We don't want them worried about the officials, but when they hear you doing that, it's gonna change their focus. They're not gonna do as well, right? And so please, and I encourage you to simply be as that spectator who doesn't put the kid in a place to worry about officials or worry about parent coaching, but instead allow them to be coached, allow them to experience the game, the challenges, the difficulties of it. And then at home, please coach them up the way you want to. And that's totally up to you. But please make sure that we allow the sport to be the sport and just be the encouraging supporter in front of them. And then the last thing here is club basketball is different than school basketball. Club basketball is much more about individual promotion and improvement. It's important because a lot of skills are developed there. A lot of recognition is had around the area for playing in club sports. But when it comes to educational athletics, this is about team. It's about serving each other. It's about learning, growing, putting Christ on display at Grand Rapids Christian Athletics, sacrificing for a brother, caring about other people, and so much more. So we need to sometimes change what we think we're best at on club team X to fit the mold of what is best for the team here in educational athletics. And that's 5th through 12th grade. We have to stop getting those 2 things confused. All right, it's easy. Each of them is important, right? Educational athletics, talking about all those things, the team, the community, each other, that's huge. And we all want our kid to learn those things. But we also want our kid to improve and become the best basketball player they can be. And that's really what the club focus is individually, to get that promotion, get things the way you need them, to get that going. But don't get them confused. We want to do all of that. You have to improve individually so you can bring your best self to the team and then become the best team possible. Because team is going to last through their entire life. They're going to need to learn how to use their skills within that team atmosphere. So let's encourage them to learn how to sacrifice and care for others in that team format during educational athletics. Okay, last thing is COVID. And so we have to, I mean, it's certainly an important thing, but that's why I wanted to leave you with it. I'm going to try to pull up the Cliff Notes here so that you can see. And if you have a question about these, please pipe in and ask. So this is what I'm writing to coaches, as you can see on the screen here. I'm going to try to zoom it in for you so you can see it a little better. But coaches, you know, these are the notes that I'm asking the coaches to do. And then the parents here, 5th and 6th grade children must wear a mask at all times during basketball. Just like in school, just like during volleyball, when we're on indoor sports, indoor school, we have to wear the mask all the time. Okay. And coaches that are coaching 5th and 6th grade, they have to wear a mask all the time too. All of our game staff, when you see me at the games, I'm going to have a mask on too. It's part of the regulation. So the other thing we have to note is the GRCS policy. Even with a COVID positive on a team, if you are masked properly and you're considered a close contact, you do not have to stay home from school. So if you are in any grade level and you want to wear a mask, that helps you in a close contact scenario. Okay. Christy Vanderwood is somebody who's going to help us out with all of our COVID situations that are going to occur. And I'm going to tell you this, they will occur. We had a lot of things occur during volleyball and soccer. We managed them well. We didn't have to cancel any games or teams, which was great. So we are on top of that, and Christy works exceptionally hard to make sure that people are communicated with. But 5th and 6th graders must wear masks. 7th and 8th, it is optional. You must do a screening on game day. That's in your app. Drop off and pick up. We've talked about that just to reduce the amount of cross situations. We're just having people stay outside and the kids will come out to you. There's no restriction on spectator amounts for basketball season this year, which is great. And there isn't a requirement for you to wear a mask as a spectator. It is recommended by the Kent County Health Department, especially at indoor venues. And certainly there's going to be a lot of people in there, a lot of breathy stuff going on and screaming and cheering. So I'm kind of glad that I have to wear a mask, because it does certainly make me feel a little bit better. But it's certainly up to you. It is recommended, not required. There is an admission charge, $3 for adults, $2 for seniors. Kids are free. And please, when it comes to admissions, I know that that's a couple bucks that you don't want to find in your wallet every day, but here's what I'll tell you. We, as Grand Rapids Christian, when we host events, we get to keep a lot of that money. I don't ask to fundraise with you guys. I don't ask your kids to do, sub orders and sell Big B cards and all that kind of garbage, right? All I do is ask you to come to the game and enjoy. Right? Pay the admission and enjoy. And that money is what goes to our programs to help us get new basketballs. You'll notice that we have the best basketballs of any school that we're going to play at. We have had new uniforms in every single sport in the 6 years that I've been here. So please enjoy, just come and enjoy your child's game, pay that fee, and it makes a huge difference to building our athletic program here at Grand Rapids Christian Middle School. Send your child with water and hand sanitizer. We won't have that here necessarily. So please make sure that they bring that with a water bottle. And then here's a note on carpooling. We depend a lot on each other as parents during the season to help get kids places. Just so you know, any transportation that occurs on a bus, all the kids, whether it's high school or not, wear a mask on a bus. So my advice to you is, if you're carpooling kids, have the kids wear a mask, because if they're close contact, driving 15, 20 minutes somewhere and they both have a mask on, they don't have to quarantine. Okay, so that's my advice to you, is when you're carpooling kids, have them wear a mask, because it will give them the chance to stay in school and stay in their sport. And that's really what we want. We want kids to be able to be in school and to be able to enjoy the activities they can. So that's just a note on carpooling, some advice, and I can't force you to do that. And certainly that's up to you and how you want to manage that. Okay, so that's kind of the COVID guidelines. Any questions that anyone has for us before we head out of here? Feel free to unmute yourself or type something in the chat. Okay, I don't see anybody type in our chat. So
can I just ask really quick? So there's not going to be like regular testing, like I feel like maybe there was last year, right? Okay.
Yeah, no, there was in the spring we had weekly testing. That's no longer a mandate.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the kids can in 7th and 8th grade, they're not required to wear a mask. And I think your son is a 7th grader, right?
Yeah.
So they don't have to wear a mask for that. Certainly they're allowed to. But yeah, they can just come. And then the only time that we have that situation, I think, is a COVID protocol where if somebody's a positive and your child is considered a close contact, in order for them to remain at school, they have to do testing for a certain amount of days or something like that. And Christy will walk us through that. I'm not the perfect person to ask. And then everybody in here, if your child does have some kind of close contact or COVID positive, please let your coach and I know as soon as possible so we can start getting that to Christy and getting things going in the right direction for everybody's benefit. Thanks for starting us with that, Stephanie. Thank you. Mike Vanderwood, of course, Mike is asking about if there's a 3-point line for 5th grade. Yes, there is.
Oh,
I know,
hoping you'd
Mike.
say no.
No, there is some different rules in 5th and 6th grade though, like some different trapping rules. So like they can't trap within like the first 3 feet of the half line or something to allow the ball to get over. And then there's different rules about, you know, if team's up 20, does that change the way they can play the game and stuff? So there is a little bit of that, and your coach can explain that to you and to all those 5th grade families. 7th and 8th grade is basically just normal basketball, you know, whatever those rules are.
Kevin, can you talk a little bit about the A team, B team selection process and the development of, you know, I'm the 9th kid on the A team, which means I won't get a lot of time versus I get to play a lot in the B team, and how we would navigate that with our kids, 8th graders, when those decisions come down and they end up on either side of that in terms of development and opportunity.
No, that sounds like you just fed me that because I asked you to feed me that question. I appreciate it, Matt. No, it's a really important question. Coach Voss actually meets with every 8th grade student, and anybody who's on here, you should know this because your child will be an 8th grader someday. He meets with every kid, gives them a survey, and asks them that question. If you were going to be the 8th or 9th player on the A team, would you rather be on the B team, right? Where you could play and be in the mix all the time, and versus maybe being a bench player or being the 2nd or 3rd at your position, but on the A team. So he goes through that with your child this week, I believe. He's doing that. I think it was today or tomorrow. He's going to be sitting with them and doing that, along with a variety of other questions to get a feel for who your kids are in that process. So that's a really good thing. How you navigate that, I mean, I would talk to your son about it and ask them, did coach do that yet? What did you say? You know, how did you manage that question or that conversation in your survey with coach? What I can tell you is there are plenty of times where there's a kid who will be the 3rd point guard, but it's better for them to be the 1st point guard on the B team and play all the minutes, make all the decisions, than just be a piece of the puzzle who just sits in the corner and makes a quick pass every once in a while, right? And because of that, because people understand that in basketball and they take that other B team spot in that scenario, we have a lot of kids from our B team actually make the freshman team in high school because it builds their confidence to get those repetitions instead of the status of A team, but no development, right? They're not getting the game reps that they need to get to be better at their position. And so, yes, sometimes that is the situation. Sometimes there'll be a bunch of kids at the same position that are good, but it's better for them to play down, right? Because of that. And so coach does talk to the kids about that. I want you to know that if you're an 8th grade parent, check in with your child about that. Ask if Coach Voss did that already, and ask them kind of what they responded, because that's important for you as a parent to know about how the team process will go. And certainly send a note to coach too if you're worried about it. Jim is fantastic and does a great job. So that's a good question. Did I answer your question well, Matt, or did you have something else? Okay. Good question. But we have, and I will say this, we have had many B team players make the freshman team or the JV team eventually, simply because they stuck with it. They got repetitions, they got better, they built confidence in themselves, and they didn't see it as a status as much as an opportunity to grow more effectively. And so, you know, I always say it's a nice checkpoint, but it's developmentally appropriate too. You know, some kids haven't grown yet, some kids haven't hit their spurt, but if they know what that position is they want to get better at, sometimes you take that other spot just to make sure that you can get those reps. So, any other questions? I see there's a note in here. Will coaches be flexible with kids who play on travel teams? There really shouldn't be any travel teams going on right now. Most travel teams exist in January and February and March, which is why the league ends their season. We do run into like a tryout usually during December for like a storm team or something like that. There might be a tryout in December, but their teams don't start until January. Now, if your kid is on futsal or something like that, we really need them to be at basketball during those conflicts. But we do coach our coaches to work with you on that and try to split those conflicts as best as possible for the person who asked this question. So we really want you to try to split those up. If you've got a practice for a club team and a game for us, we certainly want you to be at our game. If you've got a practice and a practice, you know, 3 times, we'd like for you to be at 2 of ours and 1 of theirs. I mean, our season is short, right? Theirs is going to go for another 3 months after this. So, you know, we want to make sure that we're putting the eggs in the basket that's happening now, and gaining all we can from this. But we do talk to our coaches about doing a good job of that. So whoever asked that question, please make sure you communicate with coach. If you have questions for me, please send me a note or give me a call. Well, that's a good question. Anybody else? Okay, well, we're right at 8:30, so I got to go. I got another Zoom meeting with competitive cheer. So I'm going to stop this one, but thank you for coming. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you hopefully around next week and as the games start on November 6th. Take care.